Bob Bryson and Bart Ehrman about whether or not Jesus existed as a historical figure. I was the moderator, and after the debate was over, I did a number of discussions, including the one that Eddie heard with Richard Carrier, giving our thoughts about the debate, about what went right, what went wrong, and my views in general. So what question or comment did you have about that?
Well, basically, my comment is basically, I think if you're going to take the Jesus mythicist position, it's almost as tenable as taking a flat Earth position. And
well, no, actually, because we have concrete evidence that the Earth isn't flat, wouldn't you say?
Right, and we
have concrete evidence. Do we have concrete evidence that Jesus existed that is comparable to that for which we have that the Earth is not flat?
Well, it depends. We have the letters of Paul where he says,
Paul ever met Jesus, did he? Did Paul ever meet Jesus, the living Jesus?
Well, if I recall correctly, didn't he say he met his brother?
Okay, so
I meet the brother of a mythical guy.
So you've got a bunch of stories. Do you have anything other than testimonials? I mean, if all we had to determine that the Earth wasn't flat was a handful of people who said that the Earth wasn't flat, then you'd be able to compare the two.
See, this is where I think you're being disingenuous, and here's why. If you took any other historical circumstance where someone wrote a letter and I said, oh, hey, I went and visited Matt Dillahunty's brother, nobody would ever say, it's almost like because it's Jesus, well, we're going to say it's a myth.
Yes.
If I had said, hey, I went and visited Matt Dillahunty's brother, I went and visited Matt Dillahunty's brother, and you have my letter,
yeah,
nobody would think you were a myth.
Right, but does that mean I have a brother?
No,
Is that enough to reasonably conclude that I have a brother just because somebody said they met my brother?
In a letter, I would presume that the preponderance of the evidence is in favor of you having your brother. It's written down. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what happens as far as historical methods. If somebody is presented as a real, living, breathing figure, then because we can't prove they're not, we don't have time machines. We generally just assume they do. But it's not like we're saying we're absolutely convinced that that's the case. There's a number of urban legends and myths where at different times people were convinced these were actual historical figures, and then we come to find out that perhaps they weren't. Well, Paul Bunyan, King Arthur, etc. So the issue here, let's say that you become convinced that I'm real because somebody told you, or that I actually existed because you read a note where somebody said they met my brother. Okay? Cool. What else do you know about me?
Well, I also know, if we use that same Jesus scenario, I also know from Paul's letters that he went and hung out with 3 of Jesus' closest disciples.
I understand that, but what do you know about Jesus from Paul?
I know he existed.
Well, no, I don't think you know he existed. It's just that you're convinced that that's a reasonable explanation that he existed. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I specifically have not taken up the mythicist position.
Well, I'm curious to hear the verse that we're talking about. I mean, I think that would be clear.
I think it's in Galatians. In Galatians, Paul says he went up to Jerusalem, and that's where he met with James, the brother of the Lord.
Sure.
Right, but I guess I want to look at it. Go ahead and look it up. Y'all can continue the discussion.
Well, it's actually part of the debate, this James, the brother of the Lord, and it's something Carrier and I talked about whether it means
there was a question. Right, there's a question because the term brother was used between Christians. I mean...
But if you read the text, and you read the text in Greek, which I'm learning Greek, it's the way you would read it, it's just like Bart Ehrman. There's really only one way to read that is...
Actually, Richard Carrier disputed that. So, but I'm not an expert either. Let me get to the point here. Let's assume for a second that Jesus actually existed. I have no problem with that there was somebody named Jesus that these people were talking about. Were they all talking about the same person? What facts from this person's life can we be confident about?
Well, okay, I think we can fairly say there's a couple things. I think we can say that there was a guy named Jesus. I think we can say that he was executed under Pontius Pilate. I think there's enough historical evidence that supports both of that. And I guess my main gripe is if you look at what the mythicists have to go through and the way they have to dance around to get to their position, I mean, they have to basically, and this is why the debate didn't work. You can't have someone on stage like Robert Price saying, you know, we have the 7 undisputed Pauline epistles, right? Scholars just don't dispute them now. But then you have him coming out and saying that, well, I dispute them.
Yes, he does.
Okay,
And so
well,
this is
flat Earth.
So Eddie,
Flat Earth.
Eddie, any individual?
Yeah.
No, it's not like flat Earth.
I thought Price's book was really well received. I mean, I could be wrong.
Price holds a number of incredibly unorthodox views, even among some of the scholarly ethicists. And this is what Ehrman took him to task for with regard to, like, for example, there are a number of Pauline epistles that just almost everybody says, yep, these were written by Paul. Then there's a few others that most scholars say weren't written by Paul. And then there's some that are in question, like 2 Thessalonians. But here's the question, Eddie. You're God, okay? For the sake of this question, you're God.
Okay.
Okay. And you've decided for some reason, we won't even go into the reason, that you are going to take a portion of yourself or a co-equal with yourself and come down and take human form, sacrifice yourself to serve as a loophole for rules that you have control over. And the evidence that you're going to leave for this is stories that cannot be verified from anonymous authors that are passed around verbally, that are changed and altered. Is that sufficient reason to believe that Jesus was divine, that he was raised from the dead, that he is the one and only way to heaven, or that any of the things that Jesus is supposed to have said are actually true?
But that's not why I called in.
I know, I'm asking, I'm doing okay, then Eddie,
Yeah.
then I might as well hang up because I don't disagree with you about the mythicist position, so why are we wasting time on it? I asked a question, I mean, is this sufficient to justify that belief?
The way I have well, first off, just so you know, so we're coming from a level playing field, I don't really have a high view scripture. So if you're asking me to say, like, if the Bible the inerrant word of God, I don't have a high view of scripture. Do I think I'm probably more in the vein of a Dale Martin as far as my belief structure? Where I think these guys have I think they can say the stuff they can. I think I personally was an atheist who became a theist because I had some experiences under a rational person. I cannot explain them.
Well, hang on. If you had experiences that you can't explain, then what made you become a theist? Because using theism as the explanation for something you can't explain, now you're contradicting yourself.
No, I'm saying I'm a rational person. I had an experience, and there's validity to it because there's other people that were in the room when I had that experience. I was with someone who killed himself.
Okay.
And from the point she killed herself on, yes, I'm sure there were things that I hallucinated. I have no doubt in my mind. But then there were other things like, things that moved, where people were there to witness it.
Okay, what is the explanation for what you experienced?
I have no idea.
Then how could that possibly be relevant?
From CO2 with CNBC Live, with Harper's Washington editor and Nation columnist Christopher Hitchens.
Good evening, welcome to Talk Live. Talk Live is part of CNBC's Talk Weekend, and the talk kicks in at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Jake Havoc. Then it's John McLaughlin at 8, and then it's different Talk Live hosts at 9 and 11. Concerning myself, your choice for this evening, I have the honor to be Washington editor for about 10 years. In our neighborhood, New Jersey, New York, it seems to be a beautiful fall, but elsewhere it seems to be springtime for Hitler. There's a lot of activity in Germany and
Well, Mr. Peasteak, which I think you must be, because I don't think there would be a Mrs. Peasteak. Could I be wrong about that?
What up, guys?
You want to know what historical figures, events, movements, or books I feel have been ignored or underemphasized in the public education of young people? Here's a piece of advice about asking a question. Try and narrow it down a bit. Try and make it more incisive. Try and get under my skin. You give me
Hey, I know how hard it can be. Sometimes just getting out of bed is a hassle.
So on social media these days, I've noticed a lot lately that you have these new communities of black atheists. And there's these communities of black people that are atheists, and they're starting to come together, and there's groups that are created for them. And I'm sitting here with Adam Coleman from True ID, and we're just going to talk about that a little real quick. So Adam, in your estimation, where do you think this kind of new wave of black atheism has come from?
Well, yeah, I think you said it just right. It's a new wave, and I think that, to be fair to my black atheist friends out there, it's not to say that there's never been black atheists out there, although they've been a super small minority of the African American community. But you can look to people like James Baldwin from back in the day, who's a writer coming out of the Harlem Renaissance, is very popular during the during the 60s in terms of when he was publishing his work. He was outright atheist, and so it's not to say they haven't been around. But like you said, I mean, there is this new wave, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, on the one hand, I say all the time, man, you really can't deal with the problem of evil within the context of the African American experience, without in some way butting up against racism, oppression, and addressing those kinds of suffering. And unfortunately, I think in many ways the church hasn't spent a lot of time cultivating responses to the problem of evil that are relevant directly to the kinds of sufferings that people in the black atheist community are most concerned about. And so now what you have is this community, like you said, of atheists who have all the same types of objections to Christianity that a Richard Dawkins would, or something like that. But then there's this extra layering of concerns that are really cultivated from these types of cultural sufferings, if you will, that I think really adds a flavor, kind of black flavor, to the general type of atheism that we encounter. But then there's also a different type of black atheism as well. It's more idiosyncratic, that has to do with not necessarily rejecting God in general, but more so rejecting the God of the Abrahamic faith. And so that's an even smaller subset, but you have that idiosyncratic use of the term black atheism. So if you run into them, you might want to ask questions kind of in a Greg Koukl kind of way, what do you mean? You know what I mean? So that you can really grasp where it is they're coming from before you kind of formulate a response.
No, that makes sense. That's good. So what's just kind of like one kind of thing that you would say, kind of responses kind of catered towards specifically the atheism of black culture, or an atheist in the black culture?
Sure. Well, one of the main concerns is generally going to have to do with oppression, that African Americans have experienced in the past or even in the present and so forth. And they're going to look to things like the participation of professing Christians in the transatlantic slave trade, antebellum South, so forth, with slavery. And they're going to kind of use those as kind of this, they got a cadre of assault, so to speak, related to these various types of moral issues, particularly within African American history. So with that being said, all these moral claims, against Christianity, and all these other concerns that they have, is in some way or the other is going to be rooted in an assumption that humans have value. Now I would argue that both morality and human value can't be robustly accounted for on an atheistic paradigm. And so I think that that's a great way to approach the black atheists. Hey, look, I agree with you that slavery was messed up. I agree with you that it's oppression of any people is wrong. However, I'm saying that theism gives me a better account as to why that is the case, as opposed to atheism. So sometimes what I'll do is I have what's called I call the modified version of the moral argument, where I say, well, if God doesn't exist, then objective moral values and duties don't exist. And then I kind of rather, shape the second premise to not just kind of talk about general moral values and duties, but something specific like chattel slavery. We agree that chattel slavery is wrong.
Right.
Well, if we agree on that, then, let's get to the third premise then. Therefore, God exists. Now, some people may not, want to jump to it straight that quick. Sometimes it may not be appropriate for every conversation. But just giving an example, I think that, those kinds of moral angles can be helpful when dealing with the black atheist, because you can find that point of connection on these concerns and give a better
they have towards probably theism in general and Christianity in general. And to be more specifically too, instead of looking at it just from, if God exists, subjective morals exist, we also can take into account the biblical concept of identity, you know what I mean, that Imago Dei, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think Mess can get into a whole different bag. I'm trying to hold back.
Yeah.
So you have to subscribe to the channel so you can get the rest of this answer. But you're right. Yeah. I think the best account of who we are and why we are bearers of the kinds of rights and value that they're concerned about is really rooted in the Imago Dei. It has no.
We've given you 40-cent raise, Peyton. Congratulations. I can still picture that exact moment when my boss said those exact words to me.
The one of you, however you decide to do it in whatever order. Define the difference between atheist, agnostic, skeptic.
Okay, so an atheist is someone who simply does not believe in God or gods, in supernatural deities. A skeptic is someone who, they could be religious, they could be spiritual, they could be atheists, they're questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're challenging dogma and ideology. Did you ask about free thinkers?
No.
Okay, so free. Agnostics. I don't know if you want to expand on what agnostics.
Agnostics is someone who says, I just don't know. It's possible, and they're not offering sort of like definite no or yes. It's just,
I'm sorry, Chris. But you define yourselves as atheists.
Yes.
Okay.
Atheist, but I mean, atheist is a pretty big umbrella. So atheism can encompass secular humanists, those again that subscribe to the belief that morals, ethics, and justice emanate from human beings, not from on high, not from supernatural deities, not from Santa Claus, not from leprechauns, things that are not material. We also consider ourselves some skeptics, again, because we're questioning and we're challenging dogma.
So are you a kind of materialist?
Scientific materialist, yes.
That's interesting. I guess, can I push it a little bit?
Well, I ain't never heard of scientific materialist, so don't. That's a new one.
That's new for me. I guess I have, I've been around people my whole academic career who had alternative beliefs, systems, and values, and some who were atheists. And one of the things that always fascinates me about atheism, particularly, is the certainty. And the certainty philosophically bothers me because it's
not necessarily certainty.
That's all great say. Atheism is not certainty, because you can be agnostic in your atheistic views and say, I don't know. That's not being certain. Theism is a certainty. Theism is asserting the fact that there is a God or gods. Atheism is saying, I don't fucking know. I don't have enough evidence to say that there is or isn't a God or gods. So it's not the certainty of it. Like, dude, you can't, and she called him too and stopped him, like, don't say it like that, because you're playing the card backwards.
Fascinates me about atheism particularly is the certainty. And the certainty philosophically bothers me because it's
not necessarily certainty. So again, when I talk about a big umbrella, some atheists who simply don't believe in, again, supernatural beings say, getting back to Siobhan's earlier point, we cannot prove this. definitively. We cannot say definitively that there are not these
So the phrase is,
supernatural
I don't
things.
know?
We don't know. We don't subscribe to, again, supernatural deities as being controlling forces when it comes to determining morals, ethics, values, and justice.
Yeah, I think that to be an agnostic to me makes more sense to me than to be a strict atheist, because the strict atheist, to me anyway, is, as some might say, as nonsensical as being a Christian.
No, let's clarify.
I'm saying belief.
So let's clarify. So an atheist just looks the belief. That's it. When you try to subscribe and attach other, ideologies to it, then you're taking it away from what it actually is, atheist, a lack of belief without
But
the
the atheist
belief
lacks
of
a belief
God.
for a reason, though, right? Because they
There's
don't.
no evidence. I don't see evidence. When I see evidence, then I might change that belief. But until that evidence presents itself in a way that yeah, where's the evidence? I don't have the belief. And so if I told you there's a purple unicorn living in your heart right now, you'd say, well, where's the evidence? You wouldn't just take for just the fact that I said it, that it's there. So you just don't believe that it's there. Period.
Well, I think your definition of atheism is quite broad.
Or maybe yours is narrow.
No, I mean that's.
So theism. Okay. So
let me finish.
Expound.
That was unkind, but that's okay.
Well, I apologize.
No, that's fine. Because I'm trying to have a civil conversation, but we cannot have one. But let's keep it civil. Your definition of atheism seems to be somewhat broad, because atheism, as I understand it, formally speaking, philosophically speaking, says that there is no God. Agnosticism says that I don't know.
No, that's not the definition of atheism. So the definition of atheism simply means no belief in gods. We're not subscribing to higher power.
Because there is no God, or because you don't have evidence for it?
No, it simply means no belief. So theism means belief in gods and supernatural beings. Okay, atheism is the opposite. So just think of it in those reductive terms.
But that's not how atheism practically functions in the world. I mean, I get the definitions.
That's how it functions for both of us.
That there is no belief.
No belief in gods as omniscient, omnipresent,
my
creators,
if I may,
actors,
if I may,
architects,
if I may. My point is, I think that belief system is fine, but it has a certain certainty to it that I think.
This is a good conversation, yo, and it's two black chicks. It's all black people. I gotta share this on my. I gotta share this on Facebook. Yo, my man was like, that was unkind. You know, that was unkind. I'm here to have a civil conversation. And it's like, no, dude. She made a fucking analogy that made perfect sense. And you had no rebuttal for it. And so you said that that was unkind. Because you said something that I can't say anything against. But that's the religious tactic for you. Like, they just It's all emotional, yo. This shit is all emotional. And they're telling him over and over for the third or fourth time what atheism is. It's the opposite of theism. You have something that's symmetrical, then you have something that's asymmetrical. You have something that's sexual, then you have something that's asexual. And it's the opposite. You have theism, you have atheism. How can anyone not understand that? And this dude is just trying to drag this thing out so hard because he's obviously, he's not being proven wrong, but they are making a point. And he wants it to be where he is the only, party in this conversation that's making a valid point. And it's not working well for him. And then it's two of them against one. And then it's women. So already on so many levels, he feels threatened. These two women atheists are questioning me on my beliefs in God. And she made one analogy, and it was like, that was unkind. Like, no, it wasn't, dude. Stop bitching, bro. Never seen this show. It's on Fox. I don't watch TV like that. I just typed it because I don't. Happy Sunday, niggas. But I just don't hear a lot of black people talk about atheism. And once again, just I bring up the conversation more often than not. And when I ask black people why they believe in God, nobody believes in the God of the Bible. They believe in the Bible, but they don't believe in the Bible and the God. Now it's like everybody's on this new wave alternative where I'm kind of Christian, but not really. That's where my beliefs are founded, but the universe and astrology, and I'm a Cancer, and Jesus, but it's like nobody don't really believe that shit. Believe it. They just say they believe in God, yo. But it's like this personal God that everyone creates for themselves. No one goes by like this strict Abrahamic scripture depiction of God. Nobody don't believe in that shit, yo. That shit is dead, yo. I swear it is. And then some people I know who's like, oh, I'm gonna do Bible study or something. They don't even believe in that shit, really. You know what I'm saying? Because the more you study that shit, it's like the less you believe in that shit, yo. And them be the ones who leave that shit, yo. The ones who go all the way through that shit be like, man, this shit don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. And that's it, bro. Especially for women, because the Bible make women seem so bad and so lesser than. Like, really, women? And y'all accept that shit. But then, like you say, now they gotta cherry pick this shit, and it's like, oh well, yeah, but that's the Old Testament, and that's why the Jewish faith seems so strict, is because they only go by the Old Testament. That is their Bible. The New Testament that's what it is, some new shit. To them, that's like new wave, new age, Jesus, ooh. Like, real Jews don't believe that shit. They just read the Old Testament. That's the Bible to them. But everybody want to pick and choose, like, the good parts from the New Testament and like blend that shit with some sage and some gems, some crystals and shit, man. Boom. You know what I'm saying? Goddess. I don't know, man. Nah, the crystals and shit, haven't studied it enough, honestly. But there may be something to crystals and magnets and shit. You know what I'm saying? That's what they say about the construction of the pyramids, because it's a core structure inside the pyramids, and there are certain stones for certain different things. Certain stones that have higher level of quartz, and certain stones that have higher level of iron or copper, and like they built this shit in a way so that, I don't know, like, so that the rocks themselves create some kind of fucking energy field. Crystals, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Something to it. I gotta get up on some crystal shit. New Testament's fan fiction. It's like, you know what? Yo, we can add on to that, yo. We can extend this. Like, now just imagine the Messiah, what they say his name was? Oh my God. I can't remember what they said the Messiah's name is supposed to be. Something with an M, ain't it? It wasn't Jesus. Whatever that motherfucking name was that started with, it wasn't Jesus. But they said his name, and you would call him Emmanuel. How you go from Emmanuel? But anyway, the fan fiction was good though. You know what I'm saying? They just changed a little bit of shit, changed it around, had the savior, you know, the motherfucking the revelations, all that good shit. Pretty good story. Pretty good story.
It makes sense. But so I guess we're at loggerheads because we're pushing back against the presumed certainty of believers. So
which may not also make sense. That's my point.
Having an atheistic conversation as I paint a picture of Jesus. The irony. You can almost taste it. It's just as if I was painting like Spider-Man or Batman or something. Same difference. But I want my Jesus to have a little more hair on his face. You know what I'm saying? Beard don't look all the way good yet. But I want to fill in some more of the. I'm going over the second layer of the skin tones. So I want to get some more of the skin done first, and then I'm gonna like fill in the beard a little bit more. Give him that lengthy full beard. And then I think I will put like the Superman bang or the Superman curl. I think I will put that down in the front like that. But you know, just to make him look a little more Jesus-y. So I had to take away the rag. Cause he got a rag in his hand in the picture, and I made the bowl bigger, but I might change the bowl up one more time. I ain't really sure yet. So we're gonna work on his face. To work on the face, yeah. We're gonna work on the face. storm in here this morning. Y'all gotta get a thermometer to hang on the door. I keep trying to get an air conditioner, and nobody wants to sell me one. I might check Facebook Market today and see if somebody emails. Oh, I got this yesterday. Got my patent. Ooh, that boy in business. Now, I'm just waiting on one more quote, yo. Cause I got 3 quotes already, and one of them is like really close to what I expected to pay to get them made. And then somebody else said they had a guy or somebody who could probably make them. So I reached out to him and I told him too. I was like, yo, I already got 3 quotes, man. But let me. I showed him the design and everything. And I was like, just get me a quote on that, Joe. Cause I'm ready to go into production now. Matter of fact, damn. So let me send one email out. Nope. So, like I said, I'm dealing with the one company real hard right now. Like, if the other dude doesn't, whoever this guy says he can get to produce it for me, if they don't contact me early in the week, I may just go ahead and go in production with this other company that's out of state. Really didn't want to do it out of state. Kind of wanted to stay more locally with the business. Even thought about like contacting a Japanese manufacturer. And, you know, them motherfuckers slap them shits together for some pennies sometimes, $1 or some shit like that. It's just the shipping fees to get that bitch over here. But then, I don't know, like I said, I'd just rather have this shit made in America. And I wanted it to be more local, but oh well. And so, like, the price I got now is pretty decent per unit. But if somebody can do it cheaper with the same level of quality, but that's what I already got quotes and everything from the one manufacturer, but the one thing I forgot was if I can get a prototype similar to this one, as in, okay, I want you to make 500 of these for me, but make one first and send me that one. It's going to be exactly like the other 500, but send me that one so I can see how that shit looks and how it feels, and if it actually fits how I want that shit to fit together, and is there any kind of like finishing I need to do on that shit. And I'm thinking about getting like I don't know, some kind of stamp or some kind of press or something to put my fucking name on that shit. I'm gonna have to do a lot of after production shit, like probably have to package them myself, package them and tag them. But that won't be hard, you know what I'm saying? Just to sit down like one or two evenings and bag all them shits up. And if I can find a way to like stamp them or tag them with my name on that shit. But hopefully before the end of the year, especially during the holiday season, it'll be a hot little gift item for all the artists. Yo, get yourself a little brush holder. Throw that shit in your little studio. Man. I think people will like that shit. We'll see how they sell. I said I just get like 500 or something of them shits to start with. And then if I have to sit on them for too long, well, I already got like 2 people who's trying to buy them in bulk real quick, and I can kind of like wholesale too. I don't know. Have to just see how it plays out. Gotta get the website set up. Once I get the official product, gotta shoot a commercial for that shit. If I can get this little thing right here popping, boy. No more working for me. Be a full-time artist for real. trying to be a full-time artist. Trying to be your full-time artist for real. Never understood what a career was. A career is a job is something you gotta do. A career is something you wanna do. Damn. Finally learned the difference in that shit, man. You know how long it took me to understand the difference in that shit? My entire life.
If a Christian cannot, or a Muslim or Jew cannot say, I can quantifiably prove that there's a God, right? Can't, not scientifically. A Christian may say, I have experience, I have intuition, I have feeling, but that you can't measure taste, you can't scientifically prove that. I'm asking whether or not atheism falls into the same problem, because it has a certain level of what you call non-belief, but it doesn't know. It does not have special knowledge into the nature of the universe or the nature of existence. No more special knowledge than as you would say Christians have.
Okay, but again, I think there's this false dichotomy being proposed. What we're simply saying is that there's no evidence, there's no empirical standard by which you can actually prove a negative, okay? Something that doesn't exist or something that cannot be empirically articulated. That's what we're saying. We're also saying that we don't believe in that particular architect, agent, actor, intelligent designer, however you might want to frame it, as again being the arbiter of ethics, morals, values, justice, as being omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. Does that make sense?
To a certain degree. You said earlier that the black community in Southern LA are saturated with religion and churches. You don't feel as if, I'm asking both of you, you don't feel as if religion, the black church has done any good?
So I want to say something about that, because I do feel like a lot of times in conversations in atheist communities, black atheist communities, there's this sort of, the church was all great, church was all bad. And I'm always conscious and cautious, because I also see that as being a way to demonize black people, as a way to demonize our history, to demonize our ancestors. My grandmother was brilliant. She was definitely religious. My grandmother was a riveter of World War II. She just recently passed away. As religious as she was when she had us in church and all those things, she was still a very active person. She was still she was a part of movements. So to me, I'm always conscious and cautious that we don't demonize our communities for being in the church. That's not a part of what I do. I don't even believe in that, because as much as we might have issues with things that occur in churches, or the fact that they don't pay any taxes, yet they take up a lot of commercial space, and I actually learned that from Moral Combat, Akibu Hutchinson's book. Even with that, there's some other things, there are roles that they did play. As many issues that I had in my church, guess what? It was one of the few safe spaces. I'm from South Central Los Angeles. Grew up there, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. So I was there in some of the toughest times. That was the safest place for us to be when all those after-school programs got shut down. That was the same era. That was also the only place where we got performing arts and public speaking training was in those churches. A lot of our movements, abolition movements, civil rights movements, a lot were done in church basements. And so a lot of our attachment to that comes from that as well. But just because that thing might have helped us thrive might not be the thing that helps us thrive. that statement I might repeat in another context because we constantly stay in the survival mode. And so I think sometimes that's what these churches are benefiting from, taking from many of our communities, and some of them are not investing in our communities. They're taking up those spaces, they're not paying taxes, they're not providing the resources for the community, the job programs, the reentry programs. Some churches are. So,
if I may, what would you say to the churches, and I understand I'm asking you to talk to churches, what would you say to the churches who are doing those things? What value would you encourage them to continue to have?
I mean, constantly giving to the community is important. Also providing those resources, being active in policy changes. We're talking about, also being active in making that there's economic investment in those communities. Not just taking from the communities, not paying the taxes, so it's not going back to the community. So what are you offering the community economically? What policies are you pushing? What are you pushing for to advocate for the people of your congregation, but not only the congregation, but the community in which you sit, regardless of whether or not they go to your church, any other religious institution, or nothing at all?
Can a Christian be a humanist?
Absolutely. There have been scores of Christians who consider themselves to be humanists, and that they reconcile the adherence to supernaturalism, adherence to religious and spiritual belief, with a belief that things emanate from human beings, justice, morals, ethics, that these two things absolutely interface with each other. And so just to reinforce what Siobhan has already said about the role of the Black church, I mean, as Black skeptics living in South Los Angeles, in conditions of extreme disenfranchisement, in conditions where, as she pointed out, we don't have safe spaces that may not be faith-based, where we walk down the street and we have scores and scores of storefront churches that are struggling to survive, that are pulling in working class, lower income folk with programs, with initiatives, with things that are giving back to the community. They may be insular when they're doing this, but they are fulfilling some vital service that does not exist because we're in this hyper-capitalistic, predatory, exploitive environment where a lot of our small business owners, they can't get small business loans due to institutional white supremacy and discrimination. So I think we need to look more holistically about the role that the historic Black church has played, acknowledge, as Siobhan pointed out before, there is a paradox that exists, that these churches have played a very profound role in providing some avenue for socioeconomic enfranchisement and cultural relevance for African American communities. But they've also been very corrosive, destructive, and insidious when it comes to queer, trans, and gender nonconforming, non-binary African Americans, the HIV/AIDS crisis, preying on Black women and girls in the pulpit and in the pews. And we know historically African American women have been the cliched backbone of the Black church. So these are some of the issues that we as Black skeptics, as Black atheists and freethinkers have really challenged in our movement, while also looking at the degree to which there are these white supremacists, very reductive notions about Black religiosity, particularly in the atheist, humanist, white-dominated movement.
What's interesting about that, that's a little clappy, so y'all should clap for saying that. Because, the irony over there is, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a religious person, so we have that not in common. But what we do have in common is the withering critique that you have about religion and about the Black church particularly. We have that in common, because I think much of what you just said is a lot of my angst as it relates to religion and to the church. The church, Black church particularly, has it awful as it relates to LGBTQ issues, women, everything you just said. Is enough to drive somebody to being a damn atheist if you that one. Because and I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm trying to emphasize the fact that and I'm trying to model that you can be a part of a tradition, right, and have serious skeptical assessments of it, right. to have a withering critique of it. And I think most people watching the show have this either one thing or you're another kind of view of this conversation. And in my own personal life, that's not the case. Because in as much as I grew up in the church, and I have a love for the church, I understand what the black church, the black mosque, and the black synagogue, I understand the deep inadequacies that have come along with that.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. And again, this is for you, because I read this in one of your articles or your books. You use the term Christian fascism. And I think it relates to what you just said. Could you expand on it?
So that's a term that I trot out, particularly as it pertains to the white Christian evangelical fundamentalist movement, and the way that movement has totally hijacked women's rights, access to contraception, access to abortion, access to health screening, with all of these extremely pernicious laws that have been passed in state legislature after state legislature, particularly in the Midwest and in the Deep South. And as you know, I mean, we are in a white knuckle battle with them, with these Christian fascists, to ensure that particularly working class women of color have equitable access to reproductive health and reproductive justice.
Why was that so loud? Oh my God.
While walking along the road in Norwalk, Connecticut, I stumbled upon a flyer for a presentation called Fear of a Black Atheist. I decided I'd go in there and see what it was about. My name is Tarek Johnson, and you're watching Subverse News. If you're an old school hip hop fan, the title Fear of a Black Atheist might sound familiar to you. That's because it's an homage to the 1990s Public Enemy album titled Fear of a Black Planet.
We also wanted to make an album that was more conducive to the highs and lows of a great stage performance. We took Dr. Francis Cress Rosen's color confrontation theory and condensed it into a recording. You know, telling people, well, color's an issue that's created and concocted to take advantage of people, you know, various characteristics with the benefit of a few. How do you condense that in 1990 into a rap album when they think everything is infantile anyway?
The event was hosted by the Black Nonbelievers of New York City and the Humanists and Free Thinkers of Fairfield County at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk. About 40 people showed up, seated in the back of the diner. Speaker Mandisa Thomas spoke about the history of religion in the Black American community and how she believes the indoctrination of Black people into religions has mostly hurt the Black community. I interviewed Mandisa after the event and asked her about her background and why she became an atheist.
Yes, so I'm originally from New York City, and I actually wasn't formally raised religious. I was raised in the Black conscious community, and so I would sing in various churches when I was younger, but I also read a lot. My mother had me and my brothers. We went to the library, and I read all the books, and so I learned early on about different gods and different belief systems, and in comparing and contrasting, I could just never reconcile believing in a God that had no basis in proof or evidence. And so over the years, I had considered myself to be spiritual but not religious, but then I decided to fully re-identify as atheist in 2010. It was started to help build support for and build a community for Blacks or atheists who are questioning their religious beliefs in favor of leaving.
Mandisa mainly based her presentation on Pew Research and her own experiences running an atheist organization. She started by giving numbers of how many Black people are religious and why.
Now, why is it so significant? Now, we know that religion definitely defines the Black community. And in order to understand why there's hate here of Black people, all sides have to go to why this is important. So, numbers don't lie. Approximately 79% of the Black community does identify as religious. Okay? Christian, Muslim, Now, black folks make up about 24% of the U.S. population. And that is an extremely high number of black folks who are rich. But why is that? We have to go to the historical factors. The slavery in this country forced African captives to accept Christianity.
This topic is a highly contested debate. Catholics point out several papal condemnations of slavery, excommunicating slave owners and decrees banning slavery of Christians. Critics point out several periods sanctioning just enslavement for prisoners of war, Catholic missionaries such as Jesuits who owned slaves, and excommunicated missionaries who called for the emancipation of black slaves in the Americas. I followed up by asking her what she thought would happen if more black people became atheists.
I think there would be more. So there's a lot of things that we need to unpack as a community institutionally. So I think being atheist doesn't necessarily make you automatically a better person, and that's something that I contend. But I think with more black folks if more black folks became atheists, there would be less dependence and less support of these monstrous holdings in our community that really aren't serving that community purpose. Hopefully more people would become more financially aware of how to save and create more wealth building for future generations instead of just giving it to the church. Hopefully there would be more of an awareness of our communities around us and how to better improve upon them, and how we can invest in our own communities and help support each other without thinking that we're all trying to get over on one another. So I think that there would hopefully be a lot more critical thinking and a lot more education, more information, and allowing people to make decisions that aren't just based on guilt and fear and a certain level of ignorance.
What up? It's not just black people. Millennials across the country are distancing themselves from religious organizations. Several articles and polls show that religious affiliation and attendance in church is decreasing. I asked Mandisa why she felt that.
I take this poll a lot, man. Are you guys religious? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in like spirituality and just energy and nature and the universe and like positive vibes? Like how deep are you guys with the whole God shit, yo? Just in case someone, I know a lot of you guys already answered this question for me once before. But like you said, it's like even here in America, people are just like, man, are these old stories really, really, really real? But like she just gave the statistics though. It's like in the black community, 70 up to 75% of people saying they're like Christian or Muslim or some kind of faith. Like black people are so fucking spiritual. So fucking spiritual, yo. It's like, is that one of our downfalls, Is that why we couldn't overthrow our conquerors? Because of our godly nature? I don't know. I don't get it, man.
My dream is to help people understand how the universe operates.
Case.
I think millennials are leaving religion because we are in an age of information and technology. It's now more readily available than ever. And with the more education that is available, there's just the old time beliefs that the things that used to scare previous generations are not scaring these the young folks anymore, and rightfully so. There's just too much information out there for people to just believe anything anymore. And now that we have so many outlets for people, especially millennials, they're just the old beliefs don't hold much weight, and as well as the old traditions. They're starting to see that there are some things that haven't been working about them, and and that there is actually sufficient change that is needed that goes beyond simply what they've been taught to believe. And so the more exposure that they have to this information and education and to other people, then the less they believe in the traditions.
Mandisa spoke on a range of issues, including how Black churches in particular are negatively affecting some of their communities.
There have been reports that the Black church has generated over $400 billion since the 1980s. But when we look at the state of the communities, as well as not just the physical state, the mental state, the economic state, there has to come into question as to where this money is going. There's a good documentary called Black Church Inc. It talks about the business of the church and who is getting wealthy. It certainly isn't the people. And so we cannot ignore this fact. But also keeps people in fear and from seeking the help and solutions that are needed. Again, we went back to the first line of defense is that I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to pray for these problems to go away. There are significant health challenges in our community that many people are not getting the assistance that they need. Why? Because their churches and their leaders have told them that is something that they shouldn't do. That has been enforced. And with these high numbers, with these significantly high numbers of health disparities, whether it's physical or mental within our communities, this is a problem. And also trying to overcome those, those notions and actually seeking the mental health that people need. It is definitely, and again, it's the fear factor. It is, I don't want to go to hell, I don't want to burn, and also I don't want to disappoint, I don't want to disappoint my family members and friends. So that is a huge burden to bear. And when it comes to openly identifying in our communities, what do we often hear? That, okay, so for those of us who openly identify or who have come to our conclusions, we're often seen as rejecting our race. We're often seen as we're trying to be like those white people. And so this is also a part of the fear that, and it's so ironic, considering the white supremacist nature of Christianity in particular, that yes, we are seen as being the ones who are the enemy here. And that often is attributed to lack of knowledge as well as lack of courage. And again, I contend that these have been crippling agents for our communities in particular. Religion is a problem overall, but within the Black community, considering institutional factors, it is especially a problem.
Although she was critical of Black churches, she did concede that there have been some positive aspects that they've contributed.
We must understand that the church, for many people in the Black community, wasn't for restraint. It wasn't for support. It was where people could kind of sway away from what was going on in their lives, especially in the South. It was a place where many Blacks could rise to prominence, power, and have some sense of validation. And so we cannot deny these facts. It also a source of a lot of musicians. So there are a lot of gospel singers, a lot of church, and regardless of what you think of the doctrine itself, which is very questionable, we have to acknowledge its presence and the role that it played in the time that it was needed.
I was curious how the Black non-believers and humanists and freethinkers of Fairfield County partnered up.
So Black Nonbelievers and the Humanists and Freethinkers of Fairfield County, we connected as I was serving on the board for the Secular Coalition for America at the same time as John Levin, who is involved with the group. And so he has actually been committed to supporting Black Nonbelievers, which has been amazing. And so they asked me to come and speak with their group the first time in 2015. And so in that, we've connected more or by serving on the same board, as well as being connected through other organizations and other events. And so from there, the affiliation just grew, and I'm happy to say that whereas 2 years ago there were only like maybe 2 to 3 Black people in the audience, there were now over 10 to 12. So that has been a major improvement since, and especially since we've started the New York City affiliate of Black Nonbelievers.
Since the mission of Black Nonbelievers is to provide support and community for atheists, I wanted to know what Mandisa thought a more secular society would look like.
Well, considering that the United States population is overall about 25% non-religious, to me that would hopefully look like a society where people are not allowed to push their beliefs into public policy, meaning that everyone should have access to affordable health care. They should have access to everything, everything reproductive related. And so better education, and just a better treatment of human beings overall, because we have no divine premise as to why we should discriminate against anyone. Hopefully letting go of these beliefs and questioning them will lead people to consider the humanity overall, regardless of what their background is, and that people are looking more definitely at their actions as opposed to what they believe or what they look like. And that's what I think a more irreligious or non-religious society, that's where it should go.
Religion is a sensitive topic. In a multicultural society like the United States, finding a balance between secularism and religious rights is undoubtedly challenging. Subverse is going to be coming out with more new formats for our videos. If you like the style of this video, let us know. We will continue to keep an eye on topics within religion and its role in society, so stay tuned for more from Subverse News on this channel and our articles on Minds.com and Medium. You can also find those articles narrated on most podcast platforms. If you want to support the work we do, you can donate to our PayPal, Subscribestar, or Patreon. You can also buy Subverse gear in our Teespring, and all those links are in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
People say I talk about some weird stuff, some far out stuff. But how about that chair that you're sitting in isn't solid? How weird is that? This reality is nothing like you think it is.
My next guest is David Eindhoven. He describes himself as a full-time investigative journalist searching for the truth of what's really going on in the world. David, good morning.
Morning, Ryan. I set out on a world speaking tour in the summer of 2016 because I could feel that more and more people were starting to feel uneasy about the world.
You realize that there is a whole awakening movement around the world.
BC's giving truths out there that plant a seed.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you welcome on stage David Icke?
Thank you! Thank you! Whoa! Thank you! Thank you!
I have to be stopped.
Don't keep telling lies.
It's becoming more and more of a challenge to find places to speak without it being cancelled. My website is blocked in schools and universities and colleges. The system is desperate to silence what I'm putting out. Why?
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
We were ridiculed beyond belief. Press camped outside the house, followed us on holidays.
Yes, I know people put a lot of work into conspiracy theories, but I still think they're actually intellectually lazy.
Have you read any of my books? No. How do you know that it's intellectually lazy? If I had not let go of this concern what other people think, does anybody think I would have talked and written about some of the things I have since? No way!
When I saw what Icke is doing, I was a bit jealous of him. Wow, look at what this guy's doing.
I love his mind. I don't know if anybody else could do it but him, actually.
We are in a period now where speaking your truth is not just important, It's utterly crucial to where humanity goes from here. I mean, what kind of world are those kids going to live if we go on as we are? But we're not going to. Much as that will distress those that wish it to happen. Good. The world needs renegades, and it needs them now.
This summer, join America in delicious celebration and stand united behind the grill, because beef is what's for dinner, and dinner will always bring us together. So grab your plates and together proclaim, united we steak.
Look good. I can't even fathom what there is to hide.
I'm telling a really wicked story. One always hesitates to get started.
They're in the business, I think, of killing us.
For our children to grow up and be able to breathe.
We are in a highly polluted community. Our immune system has been compromised.
What? There's bad people, and then there's my father.
I'm the only one. This is unique to me. It's a position I was born to do.
Our antipathy, our desperation, our frustration are very deeply founded.
People right now, I think, are focused on if you get a ventilator, it's going to fix things. But I'll tell you right now, I have 15 to 20 patients on the ventilator right now that aren't recovering.
That foam is an indicator of all kinds of organic material that you really probably don't want to be drinking.
God, I thank you for equipping each and every person here with strength.
Certainly wish we've seen the worst, but we need to prepare for something worse than what we got.
I hope it's not the end of the world, man. I really don't, man.
I hope it's not the end of the world. I really don't. Duh. Nobody doesn't hope it's the end of the world, bro. I really don't. Jesus Negro? Jesus Negro! $600. Rent's due, motherfucker. Oh my God, look, dude, it's Jesus Negro. Alright, I gotta go to the bathroom. Alright. Drop you off the stuff. why I'm probably gonna stay like this week, and I'm probably gonna be here next week. Yeah. Monday morning, I have to go to work. Yes. All right. All right. All right. It's so hot in here. That's a big ass apple. You know, I got my taxes in the mail today. I don't want to pay that shit. Like my school taxes, school property tax or whatever. Is that bullshit? I still gotta pay school taxes. These kids didn't even go to school the whole year. I am so against this shit right now. Yo, they switched Instagram up that quick. Now Instagram has a shop button. Okay. I'm about to get back to the painting in 1 second. And this is why I hate social media.
This is the 37th day of straight consecutive protest in response to the police murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And as a nation's capital, we believe that it's important for us to stand in solidarity with cities and countries around the world who are outraged about police brutality and police misconduct and use of power.
32 days,
These are being excessive force on us, like coming down here taking down our comments, like just macing us and shooting us with bullets for no reason. So right now we're just trying to take back this area from which we started this peaceful protest and just trying to keep it down.
Take back the area.
At first we started actually protesting at the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. We got pushed back out of Lafayette Park because I guess the president and the White House group, they didn't want us out there. So then we been pushed back to A Street, and then we eventually pushed back all the way to K Street down there. So now we're setting up shop again on A Street, and we're asking, well, we want people all over the world to come join us and occupy A Street, occupy the White House in Washington, D.C.
Until they get an understanding of what that man behind there is sitting behind the damn desk, until he understands what's going on out here. Until he understands us out here as people and why we're sitting out here. We sitting out here for a reason. Nothing else, everything out here is a reason. He doesn't understand that we sitting out here for a purpose, and our purpose is to be heard, and he doesn't understand that. Until he understands that, we're gonna be out here every day.
The dude just said a whole bunch of nothing. He said our reason for being out here is we got a reason. That's why we out here. Our reason, our purpose for being out here is to be heard. Okay? Somebody got a camera in your face right now. What do you want to say? That's what I'm gonna be with the protest, yo. Motherfucker, you just had a whole word salad.
We sitting out here. We sitting out here for a reason. Nothing else, everything out here is a reason. He doesn't understand that we sitting out here for a purpose, and our purpose is to be heard, and he doesn't understand that. Until he understands that, we're gonna be out here every day.
We out here for a reason. Everything out here is for a reason. The reason, our purpose is to be heard.
Pretty much, if somebody's here trying to attack us, we don't want to come through and try to attack us. We pretty much make them leave. May 28th, I believe. May 28th. So I've been out here way before Trump did anything. I was the first protester in Washington, D.C. I stood the first 2 organizations in Washington, D.C. And not organizations, the first 2 protests in Washington, D.C. without any organization. So, yeah, we've been out here. So, yeah, me personally, when I say 37 days, it's me. I've been out here for 37 days.
37 days on what?
That first whole week was chaos. It was chaos for that first week. For that first weekend, at least, it was chaos.
It's a fucking war zone. That's what you fuckers want, a war zone? Yeah, luckily you didn't get hit with any rubber bullets.
So,
and out there protesting.
Definitely chaos.
Yeah, that doesn't fucking bother me. Do it again.
Way more police out here. But what we did is we posted flyers all over the internet that said we were actually going to do this at a different location. So police were actually planning on being at that location, and that's where they were. That's where they were all set up. So we actually caught them by surprise. They didn't know we were doing this tonight. We just pretty much when all the press leaves, all the media leaves, the police come through, take everything, knock over the tents, knock over the tables, confiscate bikes, confiscate cell phones, grills, all our medical supplies. And they pretty much try to take everything we have, so we're not out here, but we just continue to get more things, get more donations, and set up. Like, they've been using war tactics. Like, they know, like, if you want to attack people, you take out their supplies first. So that's what they do every time. You take out our supplies. So we come out every day, still strong, and reset up. And yeah, right now, this is the best we reset up so far. Tomorrow, we're expecting to see way more people. We're planning to set up a lot more tents. And yeah. Tomorrow, 4th of July, it's going to be, I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see.
It's gonna be, we'll see. What the fuck does that mean, bro? I don't know, we'll see.
We are not moving until something is done. We demand Mayor Bowser make a comment, make it illegal to use pepper spray and war tactics on peaceful protesters. The bill was passed June 10th. Mayor Bowser has yet to sign it. We're asking her to defund the police department. They're already receiving $500 million every year, and they're getting a $2 million increase next year. So what we are planning 4th of July is we are planning to be here all day demonstrating because we do not stand for 4th of July. We want Juneteenth to be a national holiday. We will be here all day tomorrow.
Bill Cooper.
I'm glad to finally meet you. Jill's told me a great deal about you. Well, it's nothing like meeting face to face.
No, sir.
Please, have a seat.
Thank you.
This is our traditional family dinner.
If you don't mind me saying, everything looks delicious.
It is. Thank you, Lord, for this food. We ask you to bless our guest, Jack, and this special meal and our time together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Oh man, let's eat. Oh man, let's eat. Please pass me those bourbon mashed potatoes.
Oh, well, that's quite an impressive career, Pat.
Oh, yeah.
War correspondent for the Associated Press?
Yes, it's a joy to be a reporter. I've been very fortunate.
Oh, your parents must be very proud.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, I'm glad, 'cause I think these are the best bourbon mashed potatoes you've ever made.
Well, what do you mean you wouldn't know? We haven't talked in 10 years.
Are they in some kind of a coma?
We had a falling out. But what kind of falling out? Over religion.
Why is y'all so nosy?
Both, in fact. Oh, what are they? They're Baptists.
All right.
And you are? I'm an atheist.
I'm gonna need another helping of those bourbon mashed potatoes.
I don't even know what show this is. But I'm definitely gonna get banned for watching that shit.
Well, I am pleased to introduce Nadia Duncan, our student awardee this year. Nadia won the Michael Hakeem Memorial Student Essay Prize, first place, in the Freedom from Religion Foundation's College Essay Contest for Freethinkers of Color. This year, FFRF has given about $40,000 overall to several dozen students in our 4 essay contests. The Executive Board of FFRF has now created a new award endowed by David Hudak to begin next year, focusing on essays by students of color, making this a permanent essay contest for FFRF. You would have caught and remembered her essay, Why I Am an Unapologetic Black Atheist, in the September issue of Free Thought Today. Nadia is 18, has a birthday coming up in November, is from Vienna, Virginia, and is already a sophomore at SUNY Purchase College. Her interests include singing, acting, dance, creative writing, historical, and not so historical reading. Her mother is also here today. Given the title of your essay, Nadia, FFRF has a plaque for you, recognizing you as an out-of-the-closet atheist. Please welcome Nadia Duncan.
Hello. First of all, I would like to formally thank you all for this honor. Thank you to the current co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Dan Barger and Annie Lori Gaylor, for your tireless efforts in the courtroom, in your community, and across the country to defend free thought and the constitutional edict of the separation of church and state. Thank you. Because of your work, we are able to live in a more just and free-thinking America. And thank you to my mother, Thembi Duncan, who is here with me today. Without her constantly prodding me to pen and submit this essay, I would not be standing here today. I used to call myself a soft agnostic. It was a term that I coined to try and be as inoffensive as possible in my hometown of Vienna, Virginia, while still remaining honest about my unenthusiastic attitude towards organized religious practice. People hear the word atheist and they recoil, as if it describes some sort of violent, dangerous iconoclast. But agnostic sounds tame. People hear agnostic and they think, there's still hope for her. There isn't. I've grown tired of being inoffensive. Therefore, I have claimed a new title, Unapologetic Black Atheist. I am so grateful that the Freedom from Religion Foundation recognizes the specific challenges that come with being a free-thinking person of color. For some think that we cannot live a life free of religion due to our ethnic heritage. This is narrow-minded and uninformed. It is a myth, in the words of our co-founder, Annie Laurie. The belief that people of color have to take shelter in the arms of organized religion because of the plight of racial oppression is one that stems from fear and a desire to assimilate. In my research for this speech, I stumbled upon a quote from a book called Christianity in Africa and the African Diaspora, The Appropriation of a Scattered Heritage by Adugame, Gerloff, and Hawk. It reads, "The rapid development of African Christianity and its offshoots in the diaspora is rooted in colonial history and resistance to oppression, exploitation, and slavery." This notion gave me pause. How could the very religion that was forced upon a people whose native traditions were stripped away from them be used as resistance to the very same oppressor? As it turns out, these writers' answer was that the enslaved Africans embraced whichever of the various denominations of Christianity that their slaveholders belonged to. They found solace in the promise of heavenly salvation after the horrors of their earthly existence were over. Although I only have the experience of a Black American woman in the 21st century, that explanation does not sit right with me at all. I believe that when the enslaved were faced with some of the most horrible treatment that has ever befallen a group of people in human history, they were forced to cling to any idea that allowed them to retain hope and a sense of community. They did the best that they could with unimaginable hardship and strife. The survivors of enslavement passed their newly adopted beliefs down to their progeny, hoping to pass with these beliefs the strength that would allow them, in turn, to face any of the trials and tribulations of their own lives. Ironically, through to the Reconstruction era, primarily white Christian spaces were still hostile towards Black people, forcing Black worshipers to establish their own churches, particularly below the Mason-Dixon line, because working the right way still didn't mean acceptance into white spaces. Black people were resilient enough to continue on, and the original civil rights movement was housed within the walls of the churches, because those were the only socially acceptable places for the Black community to congregate. At that time, it was a necessity for survival as a Black American to be a member of the Christian community. And I don't condemn the adoption of religion through necessity. However, as the tides have rapidly changed through the turn of the millennium, I believe that the time of necessity has passed. I understand the roots of Christianity within the cultures of descendants of the African diaspora, but I choose to reject it. With the creation of social media and the growing political climate concerning the United States government and its relationship with Christianity, I think that not only is it no longer necessary, but it is no longer possible for Black people to utilize the church as a center for political activism. Some leaders of the Black religious community are becoming exactly what their predecessors moved to the churches to escape, discriminatory and spiteful to those whom they do not understand. I wonder what would have happened if the enslaved had been presented with a humanist doctrine after the terrors of Middle Passage into the New World. Would it have made a difference in how they organized and ultimately fought to end chattel slavery? I grew up with a second degree of separation from religion and Christianity. I was born in Greenbelt, Maryland, my mother's only child and the fourth of my fathers, who had been previously married to my older siblings' devout mother before their separation. I spent most of my adolescence in Northern Virginia, a unique place that prides itself for being too suburban and affluent to consider itself the rural South, but too historically conservative to be called the North. During my youth, Christianity was always on the periphery of my existence. My mother and father both, in their own ways, seemed apathetic to the idea of religion. When my parents gave me instead of religion, was a moral compass anchored in self-confidence. They taught me to respect other people and myself. They taught me that becoming educated would be the most important endeavor of my entire life. And they taught me to stand up for myself in the face of adversity and discrimination. My parents provided the foundation for me to flourish and to have the strength to enter the adult world with poise and confidence, and they were able to do it without any added religious pressures. I was only ever in church services a few times, and always at the suggestion of a second-degree relative. I was given the choice to attend services when I was around 9 years old, and I, obviously, opted out. For what could be more boring to a child than sitting still and listening to someone monotonously drone on about things that don't make any sense? There were a few biblical passages in aging, cracked frames strewn about the house that I grew up in, remnant of my late stepmother, and I would glance at them from time to time. They always put me on edge, but I could never determine why. As I've gotten older, I've realized that what made me so skeptical when I saw these seemingly inoffensive messages of love and divinity and acceptance was that they didn't align with the Christianity I saw in real life. The Christianity that I saw was in the vindictive stares from the devout relatives of my half-siblings during my youth and the careful way they spoke to me, as if bastard child were stamped on my forehead. It is in the news, Fox News. It is in the evangelical protesters who came to my college campus in Westchester, New York last Wednesday, holding spiteful, grammatically incorrect signs, and insisting that our liberal LGBTQ-friendly student body had a one-way ticket to hell. Even some of my members of my own family are guilty of this holier-than-thou attitude that leaves my blood boiling. They act as if their Christianity somehow makes them incapable of fault. Not only that, but they act as if the faults of others have some sort of direct connection to their spirituality, or lack thereof. It's as if the steps to becoming a good person can sometimes appear to be hopelessly intertwined with devout Christian belief. How can people who have experienced marginalization themselves be able to project it onto others so easily? The answer is painfully simple. Across cultures, religion is a tool of control. In the December 1992 issue of Free Today, the late Dr. Michael Hakim, for whom my honor is named, wrote, "Christianity provided a system of thought, a climate of opinion, that made possible the dehumanization of whole categories of people. Religious indoctrination has caused the deaths of millions of people throughout all of human history, all in the name of a faceless chameleon God whose will aligns with the will of those men who wish to control others. I understand that people need comfort when the worst comes into their lives. We all want to feel accepted in communities of like-minded people, and religious centers can be places of healing and support for some. But I believe that secular spaces just like this one can be just as supportive and just as rewarding. Human beings are naturally curious, and we seek solace from the fear of an inevitable death. But to dwell on the possibility of the end of our individual existence is to ignore the plights that exist in the world around us. We all want to ascribe meaning to our lives, to find a purpose. We want to be able to name the source from which we came. I don't condemn spirituality or the belief in a greater force outside of ourselves, nor do I altogether vilify organized religious practice. But I do believe that morality comes from within, and not from a devotion to a series of antiquated religious practices, regardless of their origin. I believe that true purpose can be established here, during our time on earth. We each hold the means to our own destinies. I believe that I can be a good person, a person of value, and a black person without claiming a religious affiliation. I am, and always be, an unapologetic black atheist. Thank you.
ahead and introduce Mandisa. Mandisa Thomas is a native of New York, the founder and president of Black Non-Believers. Although never formally indoctrinated into belief, Mandisa was heavily exposed into Christianity, Black nationalism, and Islam. As a child, she loved reading and enjoyed various tales of gods from different cultures, including Greek and Ghanaian. Mandisa has many media appearances to her credit, including CBS Sunday Morning, CNN.com, and Playboy, The Humanist, and Jet Magazine. She has been a guest on podcasts such as The Humanist Hour and Ask an Atheist, as well as the documentaries Contradiction and My Week in Atheism. Mandisa currently serves on the board for American Atheists, for the American Humanist Association, and previously for Foundation Beyond Belief, the 16th Reason Rally Coalition, and the Secular Coalition for America. She is also an active speaker and is presented at conferences, conventions for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Secular Student Alliance, and many others. In 2019, Mandisa was the recipient of the Secular Student Alliance's Backbone Award and named the Freedom from Religion Foundation Free Thought Herald. Was the Unitarian Universalist Humanist Association Person of the Year in 2018. As the president of Black Non-Believers, Mandisa encourages more blacks to come out and stand strong with their non-belief in the face of such strong religious overtones. Please help me welcome Mandisa Thomas.
For that wonderful introduction. Good morning once again. Thank you very much for being here. It is a pleasure to present to you this morning. And yes, the title, I can never begin, I always have to begin this talk with the background for the title of this presentation. So as Ron said, I'm a native of New York City, and I'm a product of the Black community, which means that I am an old school hip hop fan. I'm 43 years old, born in 1976. And so how many of you are familiar with the rap group Public Enemy? Okay, yeah, that's a good show of hands here. So when I debuted this talk, which was in 2017, of course, I have refined it over the years. I was coordinating a title for a mini tour in the Northern California area. And the advisor for the Secular Student Alliance's group at Sacramento City College and I were coming up, we were trying to decide on the name or title for this talk, because this originated as from a previous talk. And so we were trying to figure out the best way to draw people in with provocative language, but without it being too harsh. And so we came up with a few titles, and mind you, this is a white guy. This is a white guy, and he was really cool as hell. So
he was cool for a white guy.
The last one he threw out was Fear of a Black Atheist. And when I saw it, I laughed. I laughed so hard because it was so ironic and it was so poignant. But I thought, well, maybe it might be a bit too much, especially for students. So I said, well, maybe we'll go with another one. But then I also consulted with one of our board members for Black Non-Believers, and who considered my sister, Bridget Crutchfield, out of Detroit. And when she saw the title, she was like, no, yeah, you need to go with that one. Because, for one, it does play to my love for the hip-hop genre, and it's based off of Public Enemy's album called Fear of a Black Lantern, which is so very ironic because, I'm going to go into this for a moment, Kwanzaa was one of the holidays that my family and I celebrated growing up, and I'm going to elaborate on that for a moment. It is an African-American originated holiday, but it can be celebrated by some of everyone, and that particular detail was left out. No offense, but who describes it and who tells the story does make a difference. And it seems that, yes, not only this country, there is a fear of a black planet, especially due to the history of the country. And in this community, And in this country, there does seem to be a fear of a black atheist. And I'm very, very big on using the term atheist because it does describe what we don't believe in, especially with the role that religion has played in this society and how it has impacted certain communities in this country, especially the black community. So while I strongly do identify as humanist and I understand why, for some of us, the piece about religion and how it has impacted and yet crippled certain communities is important to tell. And so this is what we're going to actually discuss this morning. So to start, black atheists, we do exist. So Ron kind of gave it away. I was going to mention that yesterday. I didn't get to say that I was in Playboy. That's always fun to say. And I wasn't in there just alone, you know. And again, for the record, it wasn't for any type of spread, though I do encourage that form of expression for anybody. But one of the quotes from the writer, who, by the way, was a former pastor, and he attended his first ever atheist event ever. One of the quotes that came from the article says the most encouraging moment of the convention weekend comes when I introduced myself to Andrew Thomas, president and founder of Black Nonbelievers, an organization dedicated to support and visibility for black atheists. And also, how many of you are members or active members of the American Humanist Association? Very good. How many of you received this copy of the July-August issue from 2018? So this was the first time that any publication from within the secular community has featured multiple black atheist and humanist women in its 77 years of publication. There have been some singular, black folks featured on covers. An American atheist feature, Dr. Tony Penn. How many of you are familiar with him? Okay, now that's not good. So, yeah, this last year, and ironically, these two articles were both in the July-August 2018 issues. So that was kind of a big summer. That was a big summer for us. It was a big summer for me, and I'm very, very proud of that. But the point is that, yes, there are more atheists of color who are out here, and yes, there are many of us who have actually stepped up and have become leaders, and who have, that was such a good video, because oftentimes we hear from some people that how we become leaders and how it has to be done a certain way, that there has to be this mold, or there has to be this thing that we follow. And so we get a lot of questions about, well, why is there a black organization? Why is there black nonbelievers? Why can't we just join under...
What do you do to stay motivated?
Understand the dynamic of the black community.
Smoke a lot of pot. I mean, that's the obvious answer. I hate it. I hate it that I even had to take it there to start with, but let's get that one out the way. You know what I'm saying? Motivation. Money is a motivation. Let's get that one out the way. Because these are commissions I'm working on right now. So I'm definitely motivated for the money. Somebody asked on Facebook, on the Facebook post, why do you make art? It was a simple question. Why do you make art? And I'm reading everybody's comment, and I started doing that lately now because like there are some posts I actually make a comment to when they ask the question, what about this? What about that? What do you think about this? And so I don't know. I guess the people I choose to follow or have discussions with, we are, like-minded individuals. So I noticed like sometimes I'll have a comment or a remark for a post, and then I post it, and then somebody else already said it. I'm like, fuck. And so now I just kind of, I'll read comments on a post first before I make a comment, just so I don't, say the same thing somebody else just said, the exact same thing. And so
somebody posed the question, you know, why do you create art? And I'm like, there's all kind of reasons for people to create art, and everybody's like, I do it for the therapy, and I do it to release my creative spark, and you know, a lot of common basic answers. Then I was like, alright, I'm not gonna say anything that anybody else has said. So Travis, what is one of your main reasons for creating art? You know? And I said, because I want to live forever. And leaving something behind that people find, that people ascribe value to, is a certain way to live forever. You know? And I think that's my motivation. I realize my mortality. I only have a finite time to create art. I'm pretty good at it. I think I still have a lot more to say with my art. And if I do it well enough, and the right people appreciate it enough, they'll take care of it for a long time. And in essence, I can live forever. Oh, this piece? This is Travis Prince original. We're going to start the bidding at $250,000. Quarter million. Motivation. I guess I have all those other motivating factors as well. Just, I don't know, that creative factor where I guess it's like a musician too, or a songwriter or whatever. You hear a tune in your head, you want to try to play that shit, or you think of something, and you know something's affecting your life, and you actually think of a little song lyric to it. Let's write this down. Let's write that down. You know, and it's same thing with my art. I'm just very, very receptive to life in general. I'm affected emotionally by life, and I think to help me deal with this shit, I like to make pictures. It's one of the most basic and primitive things that we have, but that shit don't never go out of style, yo. Just making pictures, man. We've been making pictures since cave art, man. You know what I'm saying? Drawing our hands and buffalo and shit. Snakes on the walls and shit, you know what I'm saying? We've been doing this shit forever. One of the most basic things to humans is to leave some type of mark, to make a visual representation of what we perceive as life. It's weird, man. It's weird. I don't know. I just... Dedication. So what I'm gonna need now, I probably need some raw umber. Raw umber. No? Yeah, raw umber, see? Yeah, see? And then after that raw umber, I might use some of this, what is this here? See? Yeah, see? Oh, all those are Van Dyke Browns. I use a lot of VD Brown. Alright. Had to order some paint online. Some turquoise. No. There are sometimes I'm really not in the mood. And I can't do it. Yeah, where does pure inspiration come from? Yeah, sometimes I definitely try to keep myself on a schedule and paint every day. Even if it's just like an hour of basically bullshitting around. Some days I can't even muster that much up. I can come in here and kind of like straighten up the studio a little bit and clean off my palettes and make sure my brushes are in order. And some days that's about as much as I can do. And some days I can't even drag myself up in the room in the studio to do shit. But those days are far and few in between. On any other day, I'm anxious to come up in here. And people hate getting that one word text reply from me. What are you doing? Painting. What you did last night? Paint. What do you got planned for the weekend? Painting. What are you getting into later on? Painting. You do anything fun yesterday? I started a new painting. You always say that, I know. Cause it's true. Ooh, it's so true. Oh, and do I get paid for the paintings? Ooh, yes, sir. Got the COVID creations going on. Copy one now. You know what I'm saying? For the low price. I ain't even charging the arm and the leg no more. I'm just charging legs. You know what I'm saying? This a one limb deal. Don't miss out. Don't miss out on the one limb deal. I think it helps for artists to be in a relationship with other artists because you can have that extra layer of understanding. We always try to understand our partner. But then there's like, I don't know, I think there's levels to it as well. Cause some people are crafty and like doing shit, and then some people are like me who kind of go hardcore with the shit, you know? And there's levels. Like if you're trying to be in a relationship with a hardcore artist who's trying to make a career out of that art, yo, that shit is tough. You know what I'm saying? And it's all about the passion. And it's weird, like I don't know, I know some people who don't have a passion in life. Like what gets you out of bed in the morning? And it's like, it's kind of weird. And then that's hard for some people to understand. Because they feel like they're being neglected because you got to focus on your passion. But if someone else had that same creative spark, who had that same artistic spirit, who had that same desire and passion to create, they would totally get it and wouldn't be offended by just the small actions of, you know, I'm going to spend 6 hours in my studio and I probably won't talk to you for the next 6 hours. Or even if we're around each other, I may, start daydreaming about some other shit. Got shit on my mind. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. Shit, artists date other artists. I think opposites attract. That is true, but it's rough to date an artist if you're not an artist. But artists are like the coolest people to date. I'm just saying, yeah. I literally started my largest commission ever. That's a really big canvas right there. It looks so small, like when it's just sitting down, but like if I stand next to it, it's a huge canvas. I got a lot done on it though. I gotta get this done first. Working on Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Ooh, snap. I smell. What time is it? Is it this early? Oh no, it is. I'm smelling cookout. Yeah, I smell some charcoals. I know that smell anywhere. My grade say, damn, it's kind of early to be grilling, but it's after 1 o'clock. Well, if it's shit, I mean, I gotta go grab me something to eat. I took some beef cubes out. Ooh, yeah, that's what it is. I took them beef cubes out the freezer. Gonna have some beef stew for dinner. But for lunch, I gotta make sure I got some, actually I might need to run to the store. I might eat lunch and then run to the grocery store, because I'm gonna need some carrots at least. Think I got potatoes, but I probably need some more potatoes. Definitely don't have any carrots. And carrots and celery. And what else? Beef stew is so simple, man. You ain't gotta put a lot of stuff in there. Some beef, some potatoes, some carrots, a little bit of celery, some seasoning. You good to go. Let that shit cook. It's kind of hot in here. Yeah, just the more I smell that charcoal, the more that hunger kick in. Mm-mm. I wish I had something else thawed out. I'll go throw me some burgers on the grill real quick for lunch. But no, I'm a procrastinator. I don't like the meal prep. Alright, it's kind of quiet. It's kind of quiet. I'm gonna probably go a bit longer anyway. Alright, yeah, let me go get some, let me go get some lunch, yo. Alright. I don't know, I might stream some video games for a little while, actually. I haven't played games in a couple of days. Appreciate y'all chilling in the studio. Oh, this light is still on. Checking out the progress on this commission. Painting Jesus the Christ. And it's looking pretty good. Catch y'all next time.